There you go. Watch it, even though it's right in front of you. Okay. Wouldn't that be fun? All right. So last week, talking about the staff and treble clef, just some really foundational pieces about what's on that piece of paper when we're trying to read music, right? What are the basics and what does that look like? A lot of you are pretty comfortable with treble clef. I would say, generally speaking, except for the basses, are probably less comfortable with bass clef. The basses don't even like bass clef. That sounds about right. So that's where we're headed today. Even if you don't typically read in bass clef, it's important for you to understand how to find. You okay, CJ?
Yeah.
Okay. Just so you know, this is all live, so this is all going to get recorded and put on the website. Okay, time 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's important for us to be able to look at stuff in the bass clef and understand what pitches are represented there. And we talked about some examples last week, right? If I'm an alto and I'm singing a C in the treble clef, and I look at the bass clef notes and I see the tenor's note, and I'm trying to figure out what it is, like, oh, why do we keep ending up on the same note? Well, if they have a C written in the bass clef, that's an important thing to know because you're ending up on the same note, right? It'll tell you if you should have consonants or dissonance, what that interval should be. I feel like we're not okay. Are we okay? Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm going on fumes.
The reason I tell you this is I feel like every year when we get going on some of these like concepts that we practice, that some of you are like, I'm just not going to do that one. It doesn't apply to me. Or you get behind. You're like, this stuff doesn't matter. But it does matter. If we all know this. Okay, last time, guys, we're going to have to move somebody for real. Okay.
I'll move from around.
Thanks, Logan. All right, if we all know this, it makes our rehearsals run a lot smoother because we start to identify some of those things without me having to point them out to you all of the time, right? You start to make some of those connections. You can identify intervals. You can realize what's supposed to be going on instead of me having to stop rehearsal all the time to do that, okay? So that's where we're headed. I'm going to get this into that mode. So there's going to be a couple things that are reviewed from last week. By the way, if you have your worksheets done from last week, if you did either the intro or advanced, you can turn those in. There's a turn in spot up here in the folder rack. You'll see a little piece of paper that says turn in with an arrow. You can turn it in there. Otherwise, there's that blue folder on the back bulletin board back there. That's also a place where you can turn in work as you get it done. Okay. So I check those two places. Make sure it gets to one of those two places. That's where I go to find your stuff. Okay. So as you get stuff done, you can also turn it into me, like if you've done something on Google Classroom and you filled it out online. If it's something that works that way, you can definitely turn it in there too. Okay. So what's different about bass clef versus treble clef, right? Why do we have a whole separate thing that we have to learn how to read? All right. So remember, clef is at the beginning of the staff, and it's going to show us which section of notes we're talking about, what's represented there. And we already talked about treble clef, like treble in your car stereo is higher than bass clef. So the treble clef represents a higher set of notes than the bass clef, right? Treble clef, bass clef. So reviewing from last week, right? There's my treble clef range. Now if I have both of them up there, you can see on the bottom there is a grand staff, what we call the grand staff. Okay, here's my treble clef notes that we saw from the last slide. Here's middle C, right? That's right there. This B is that note right there. So it's just kind of a continuation of that next set of notes, right? So here's middle C. There's that note. Here's B. Here's A. Here's G. So it just kind of continues right on down. You can definitely write middle C in the bass clef. It'd be that next line, that next line up. I feel like I don't have everybody's attention. I understand that this is review for some of you, but that visualization is a really good reminder of, like, when you see notes high in the bass clef, you could definitely write those in treble clef. So there's some overlap for sure. Okay. And that's important, especially for my altos and tenors to understand. Okay. Then we're talking about the staff, right? We've got our 5 lines, 4 spaces. We're always starting from the bottom. But now that it's representing a different set of notes, those notes are in different places. Can phones away, guys. Next time I take them, I've reminded you enough at this point. Okay? So, here's our spaces and lines, right? We talked about that last time in treble clef. Now that we're in bass clef, those notes are in different places. Okay? The bottom line in treble clef, in bass clef is G. Bottom line in bass clef is G. What was it in treble clef? Interesting. Okay? The bottom line in treble clef, not ledger lines, is E. Yeah, right? Every good boy does fine. So E is that bottom line in treble clef. But remember, guys, we're talking E in treble clef. That would be like right here on the bass clef staff. There is that overlap. You can definitely write it there. So here's that low G on bass clef. Does anybody know, like how the clef shows that where things are on the staff? I will give you a hint. A bass clef is also called an F clef. Yeah, see these 2 dots right there? It's showing you where F is. If I go back to treble clef, this is also called a G clef. Anybody know why? It looks like a G, Kayla? Yeah, where this like bullseye is right there is on the G. So I learned something new, right? Okay, so if that helps you remember, awesome. That's not how I remember it, but that's a thing, okay? So we're gonna use some new shortcuts for bass clef. What were our 2 shortcuts in treble clef? A good boy is fine, and bass, okay? The reason I use those 2, because some people use some different ones for like lines, right? The reason I use those 2, what's up? Okay, we'll get there in just a second.
They're up there.
Oh.
May I take a picture of that?
Absolutely. This is also going to be a Google Classroom, but yeah, if you would need
That's
to.
more work.
It's more work. Okay.
Can you take a picture with the last one? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah, you can do like a screenshot of it for sure.
Oh my God! Wait, so you use social media.
Okay, time out. Time out. Okay, so the reason I use those 2 for treble clef is because they both have to do with people. Every good boy does fine, and face. So keep those ones for treble clef. I use 2 that are about animals for the bass clef. And I try to remember which ones are which because of like the food chain, right? People up here on the food chain, animals down here on the food chain. That's just a little mental game I use to learn it. If that works for you, great. If not, find something else that works. But so our shortcuts for bass clef work the exact same way. You're gonna start from the bottom, either line or space, and use that shortcut to figure out the letter name of that note. Okay, so lines, great big dogs fight animals. And then spaces, all cows eat grass. So same thing as last time. I'm just gonna hit.
But they also eat grass.
Okay.
Does it work?
No, not yet. That's why I hit escape. But I also want to see the time. Okay, time out. Whoa, we are getting sidetracked. Kendra. Okay, I would love to have you guys like come down and actually put them on here, but the board is still not working for whatever reason. So, I can definitely have you come down and like show us where that would be if that works. We can come on down. Okay, so 2 shortcuts. And this will be on Google Classroom. So if you need help remembering those 2 shortcuts, very big dogs fight animals, all cows eat grass. So which shortcut are you using, Kendra?
All cows eat grass.
Okay, and that's the space one. Here, let me get back to present real quick so then it won't like do that weird thing where the box moves on you.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, so where would that A be, Kendra? Yes, bottom space. Where else could it be? Wait, where else could it be?
The other.
Great big
Oh,
dog.
at the top. The top.
Yeah, it could be right there. Can I have someone come down and help me out with E? CJ, come on, come down and help me out with E. I'm just gonna let you write, but
Right here.
for E, which shortcut are you using?
Well,
Yeah, you do.
Oh no, it's that one.
There you go. Yeah, all cows eat grass, right? All cows eat grass.
All right.
Let me ask you this. I know the marker's not working, so it's gonna be a little bit tricky. Where else could I put E?
I'm not, wait.
Every good dogs fight animals. You can't.
Right above the thing.
Oh, yeah, it's above the top line.
Oh, shoot. No, wait. Where am
You know what I'm saying? But where else can I put E? And this kind of looks ahead to what we're gonna be talking about next week. See a couple hands. Couple of hands. Madison? I could. Yep, I could put a ledger line right there and a circle. I could put it above the staff. How many ledger lines do I need if I'm going above the staff? Good. Shh, time out. And the reason I know that is I know my alphabet. Specifically, I know my musical alphabet, right? So this example, shh, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your assistance. Okay, so I know that this bottom line is G. What would be the note before G?
Before G.
What comes before G in the alphabet? F, thank you very much. Okay, so then I would add another line. What would that note be? One before F. E. If I know my alphabet, I can go outside of the staff as well.